So what do you know about project-based learning? We do projects. Fantastic. That is true. What else do you know? Why would you be doing projects? It's another way to assess. Okay. So we can use it as assessment. What kids can actually do. And to show it in specific ways, yes?
And help students develop skills
There's a whole set of skills that we call sometimes soft skills, right? Sometimes we talk about social emotional learning, the ability to persevere, the ability to work with others, right? The ability to see long-term goals and see a project through, depending on how long the project is. And obviously we're not going to do a project here, so we're going to do something more akin to what we call problem-based learning. But the idea in a project is that you stretch it over a longer period of time. What else?
makes the learning more meaningful.
Why is it more meaningful?
It gets them, I guess, more engaged maybe. Sometimes stretching it out and doing a project, like we did our animal research projects, doing it over time and seeing it in the long run.
So much of schooling, because of the way curriculum is done, is those short bursts. You know, we've got the 15-minute lesson and we've got the 20-minute lesson, and if we're feeling really luxurious, we can do 40 minutes of something, but that's about it. The average science lesson is 22.5 minutes, right? Quite a few of you have taught that, or social studies, or whatever unit studies are, that you can have a lot of fun, you can have a lot of content embedded in there, but usually we don't have the time. In project-based learning, we're saying, let's take the time, and this is something that has been emerging. Now, this is not new in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to send the message that we've just invented this. Over 100 years ago, we've been already talking about kids need to do real things, to experiment with real objects. If you've done work, especially in early childhood, that's how early childhood education really works in many ways. Now kids playing with physical objects, trying things, making mistakes, figuring things out. In schools, especially in the last decade or so, we've focused almost exclusively on getting everything right? And projects really provide us an alternative view where things can also be wrong, because there is no one right answer. You know, in math, 2 plus 3 has to equal 5, but what floats and what sinks has a lot of possible answers, right? So there's quite a few ways to think about how do we communicate that to kids, and how do we do that with kids. And I'm going to pick up a short video as soon as I can find the connector here. I'm going to pick up a short video that will help show you what it looks like in a school. We've got a school we're working with in Seattle. This is a parochial school, but they've decided as a school that they're moving everybody to project-based learning as a major part of what you're doing. Now, our problem in public schools is we are governed, especially as young teachers, we are governed by a lot of rules that we didn't make, right? So the question is, when can something like this happen? When do you think it can happen? When you think about classrooms and the way they're shaped right now, while we're trying to create them. So how can it happen? So what I want you to do right now is, we'll use the groups, but can you two join me? Because you're kind of alone and far away. There's not enough of us to really do this. But what I want you to do is, in your group, try to discuss what are opportunities to do projects in schools. When do we have the time for that? Okay, because it's important. I mean, I can talk until I'm blue in the face about how things can happen, but if we don't have the time and the opportunity to do that, that's never going to happen. So talk in your groups, and I'll come back to you in a second. There's a lot to share, right? That's fantastic, because that means there are at least opportunities to do something, which is not always the case. So what are some ideas that emerged? When can you do this? Go ahead.
Well, our animal research projects, it carried out through writing, it carried out through science, because we're making habitats and dioramas, as well as in art class, making the clay animals.
So find an opportunity across classes. So usually we're in our box. Now we're doing spelling, now we're doing this, now we're sending them to somebody else, and that's a different thing. Here's an opportunity in a project to have your media center person, your computer person, sometimes it's the same person, that's okay. Art, maybe music, you can make sound. I mean, there are lots of opportunities. You have to think about how it fits together, right? So, the cross-curricular units are a great idea. It requires more coordination and more work out of us. But it's definitely worth it. Going back to the idea of we can actually assess them completely differently. And when you think about the strength of what does it look like when parents come and visit the classroom and there's a project versus, and I'm sorry, and I always talk about my own kids, mostly because I care about them. But, you know, my kids come home with at least 10 worksheets a day, all filled out with a little star on them, and I don't care. And I think most parents don't care because it's worksheet work, right? It's fantastic that they got a star, and it's not so good when they get half a star, but that's all it is. But when it's something, it's an object, it's something they made, that's very, very different, right? What else? So that's one. Yep.
I'm in resource right now, so I only do writing, reading, and math. But my fourth graders are doing these things called bio boxes, so they have to read a biography, and the teacher helped pick out one for them that was at their reading level. And then they had to go through and take notes, and then they wrote their facts on this little box that they made. Each side was something different.
So again, having it tactile, having it build over time, that idea that it doesn't have to end at the end of the 40 minutes or 35 minutes or however long we have with them. And we can do that even when we don't own them for the whole day. That's fantastic. What else? We're not quite there yet, but I just want to remind you that there's going to be a time after they're done testing. And that's a time where most teachers kind of let go. But part of that letting go can actually be doing really interesting stuff. Because kids have done what they were supposed to do, they're being measured, they have been measured, they have either performed or not. Now you can do a lot of things, and a lot of field trips happen then, and a lot of other things. But really, it's an opportunity to do something longer term, and we're seeing that more and more in schools. So I don't like the idea that a lot of the testing is now happening in March and beginning of April. And it's like, this is becoming, my kids come home every day saying, today we took this test. I'm like, yay. Anyway, I'm really happy that they're being tested. But at the heart of this is when they're done, there's time to do other things that are not necessarily as tied down. And I've had teachers actually that are doing their masters, that's when they said, you know, I'm a little bit done with reading a different text every day. I want to read the same book with my kids every day and develop a project around this. This has been very, very powerful. And I want to share this with you. This is actually a video that the school I was talking about in Seattle made for parents. So this is kind of their message to parents, come and see what we've done. And I won't do the whole thing. The whole thing is 12 minutes, and it's a little bit too long for me. But it does show you what you can do with different age groups. And this will show especially young kids on the front end. Maybe we'll do a little bit more. I hope the audio or not.
Officer in their homes a lot. And for other kids' sexual health,
Just a second.
so use of kids, kids get left alone a lot, they live themselves.
We're still online.
That's going to be
That was Bill in the other room. Sounds interesting. I don't want to say anything. So now we'll just hear our movie. Can you see it?
the other place to the other place. This is place. Science. I drink water, so do my dad, and also my baby sister and my mom. Drink water, so do you. Technology. Engineering. We design and build. Let's get our water. Art. We made blueprint. Math. We tested. Go, Kelly!
What happens?
It worked! Yes! Yes! It worked! Thank you. Now I can drink my water. Come to our classroom. How would you build a boat? How would a boat hold 25 pennies and move? This is what we did. What makes you stay and move? Inertia.
Okay, I can send you the link. There's more because every grade level made this. And actually, they've just opened the middle school and they're aiming their way to high school, and they're still focusing on project-based learning as something that happens every day. Obviously not all day, every day, but something that happens every day and builds over time. So imagine if you could take time and say, okay, we're dedicating ourselves to developing these units over time. And what are some of the things that you're seeing in this? Questions you have or things that you're seeing that you're excited about? Yes?
I like students being called engineers.
Excellent.
To add to that, they're using extensive vocabulary when they're doing simple things, and like engineering, that's probably a whole vocabulary word for them in itself.
Blueprints is another
Right.
one. Although blueprints have not been blue in 50 years, but still. What else? Yeah.
I just noticed they're having fun. And like you saw like kids jump up and down. So excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting when it works. Why is it exciting when it works?
Just because they did it.
Because they did it, but there's another reason. Because it didn't work the first few times.
Yeah.
So you fail, and then you feel that success. That's a really important moment. And because they've tried actually lots of materials, and on purpose you let them fail, just like with the boat. Some of the boats did. And one of the things that first graders do very, very often is they use materials that are inappropriate but are pretty. Or they do things that look like boats that they know of, right? But don't necessarily work out in that environment. So actually figuring that out, that it's not just about what it looks like, but it actually has to work. And sometimes, did you see that box they put in the water? That may be ugly, but that worked. You know, that stayed afloat, you could put the pennies in it, and it worked. So they're learning a lot more from that. What else? Yeah?
I would assume maybe it's a culmination project, so
Yes,
after
what-
they learn the main parts, and they can put it all together.
They can put it all together over time, that ability to wait for it. I love the fact that the kids were outside. You know, one of the things about project-based learning that we do have to remember, and if you're teaching in Lincoln Public Schools, lots of outside classrooms across the district, and we should have them in all schools in a year or two. Really a great opportunity, and I'm all about technology, but one of the reasons I love more about technology is you can take it outside. It doesn't have to be inside. Kids can be outside on days that are appropriate at least. They can play with things. I mean, think about the opportunity. What can you do right after it snows, right? Think about that. It can be a brief period, depending. In Nebraska, it can be for quite a while, but you can do some interesting science and interesting construction with snow, right? That's really, I mean, think about just Lincoln Public Schools in 4th, 5th grade are doing science fairs right now. Think about that science question of why when you roll a snowball, it gets bigger, you know? That's a fantastic question, but it's a question that would occur to you mostly if you're spending time outside. So that's an opportunity. On the flip side, right now, we're getting to spring, I swear, we are, right? And spring is a great opportunity to go outside and plant something, watch things grow, watch how things change from the winter, no leaves and all that, and how things start emerging. But you can do that only if you go outside. So you can use technology, you can use really expensive labs and all of that, or you can just go outside, right? And a combination of those can be really, really powerful. So that idea that we don't have to be tied to the structure, to the four walls of our classrooms, and we can step outside, even if it's just the yard at school, can be really powerful, or an outside classroom. So those for me are huge, huge advantages. And of course, they're learning all of those 21st century skills of collaboration, planning, all of that vocabulary that comes with it that we can put into the curriculum. So that's the movie I wanted to show you. And I want to show you a few possibilities that are more on the digital side, and then we'll get to the project themselves, because I have a few projects here to do. The first thing I want to show you is something called History Pin, mostly because I love history. And that's why I needed to close the door on Neil Lopez, so he doesn't think I'm getting into his turf. And History Pin is a website and an app. The app is fantastic, and I'll tell you in a few seconds why, but it's a very good website. And what you can do on History Pin is you can find historical photos. There are tours from historical times or areas, but more than that, why do I love History Pin? And you can see here from Canada. But why do I love this? Let's go to, oh, I can log in. technology goes a really long way with these things. Anyway, so this is the photo I just put on. But my favorite part is that you can map. This is right now in the United Kingdom, but you can just as easily go to Nebraska. Right? Come on, let's zoom in. That was a zoom out. And if you go to Nebraska, this is the photo I just practiced to put some in. But what you can see is you can do a photo search. This is right now on my photos, but you can do a photo search on any location you are. So wherever you end up teaching, if you're teaching local history or about the community, you can go on History Pin and see what can you see. There are historical photos. And if you're going to teach in Nebraska, the Nebraska Historical Society is actually putting most of the things they have in archives that they have available online. Let's go to Nebraska. Most of the things they have online, they are putting on a History Pin. But the power of History Pin goes beyond that. So you can do a search and you can see, oh, what's in Lincoln? Wow, let's see. The university has a few things, right? Some lovely photos of campus. Homecoming Queen, 1976, right? Anyway, so the one power is you can search your own town wherever you're teaching right around the school. The second thing is kids and families can actually post themselves. So if you create an account, and this is my Google account, it didn't take anything to do it. You can start posting historical photos. It takes a few hours for the photos to show up. They check that they're appropriate, that they actually belong, and that they're not copyrighted in some ways. But then they can be posted there, and then other people can find them. So for example, if you're doing a local history project with 4th graders or 3rd graders, and they bring historical photos from the family, and it doesn't need to be ancient history, right? It can be 1982. For them, that's ancient history. For you guys too, right? Oh, that's good enough. Let's see what's going on. Is it just a solid blue? It's blue. Are you trying to say it's my fault? Because that's okay with me. Anyway, it wasn't like that at the beginning, right? It's still blue. I don't know. Anyway, so History Pin, again, that ability. Now, one more thing, and that is on the app and on the app alone. On the app, and this is why I love it on the local level, you can put the picture of a building. Let's say a building on campus, because I do this on campus. A building on campus, a picture from 1910. And then you can stand in front of that very same building with your device. And I'll show this. Let's hope I've got enough. I've got 11%. So let's go to History Pin here. 1, 2, 3. This is my new iPad. Yes, that exciting.
So how many do you have now? Like 4 or 5?
According to the university records, I have 89. But that would be inaccurate. Oh, come on. History. And so here I have my app, and what I do is I find let's find something, and the phone will always locate you automatically if you just let it. So I can go to a building. There's a building on campus. It's more exciting over there. Just saying. Okay? And here is the fair building. Now, if you can see this, right? Can you see this? I can put this on the screen. When I just stretch up, I get the full picture. But if I go down, it starts fading. So you can actually see the modern building, and on top of it, you'll see the way it used to looked like whenever the picture was taken. So you can do a compare and contrast. Did they add to the building? Did they take it away? Does it look exactly the same? What happened here? It's a great way, if you have features like that in your community, even if those are pictures that you just took off, schools sometimes have in the hallway, this is what the school looks like in 1955. You take that picture just on your device, you go outside, stand in the same place and see exactly what changes were made. So it's a great way to think about change and community. So this is History Pin. I personally love History Pin. Not everybody does, but that's okay. Yes?
Is there a way to take a picture, so the kids don't all have to be with you when you look at that building?
You could do what you always do, and that is when you're there with a picture on top of a picture, just snap a screenshot. So yes, you can do that, absolutely. So if you want to go somewhere else, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Although again, for me, part of the best things about it is the ability to take kids outside.
Yeah. I was just thinking if you had a building
Far away.
they recognize but that they can't get to. Do that.
Absolutely, yes you can.
Okay.
Take an afternoon, have somebody else drive.
There you go. Is the app free?
The app is free, absolutely. And so that's one way to really engage kids with a local history. And one of the ways we talk about these kinds of things that we do is to talk about trying to do what we call place-based education, connected to where they are. You want them to have a knowledge of the world, but you want them to also appreciate what they have right in their community, whether it's the Belmont neighborhood, or Lincoln, or Wahoo, right? Or wherever you're at, there are interesting things, there's something to learn, and if there aren't things posted, this is an opportunity to start posting them from that neighborhood or that town, right? And start having that presence that then they own because they helped post it, they brought the pictures, and that's a way for the groups that come after that to really look at that and understand how things develop. You can actually put more modern photos as well, because what they're figuring out, I think, is, it's a picture from 2012, but in 20 years, that'll be historical, right? So they're building with an eye forward. But again, the archives, the Nebraska Historical Archives are starting to put, and the university, for example, are starting to put everything they have that way, because it's hard to find them. It takes too much time and too much effort, but when it's mapped like this, you just say, I want to see everything from my town or from this neighborhood, boom, you've got it. And if there's nothing there, we should put it on. So that's History Pin. I don't want to talk about too much else. Let me see. I have a few projects here. I want you to work in groups of about 4 and work on this. One of them will be connected to History Pin or to using Google Earth, which, if you took the class with me, you know is my favorite ever computer application, or iPad application, or whatever you want, or photo or History Pin. So this is photo history. The second one is one on the Oregon Trail, and in each one of these cards for the task, for the project, we include, so I'll share this one with you. You include a short explanation of what is the task, right? So for example, in the Oregon Trail task, what you're trying to do is retracing the steps of settlers along the Oregon Trail. We give a link to just an introduction to the Oregon Trail, and then what is your task? In our case, what we wanted to do is create a geographical tour following the Oregon Trail, selecting highlights. That was lovely sound. Find out how that happens. And then create a map or a timeline presentation and be able to share it. And usually when we share projects, and that's what I want you to do in the time we have left, is try to start the project, but then share 2 things. I want you to share the actual, what did you do, so the actual product, but then talk about the process. How did we make it? So you've got to make sure that whatever group you have somebody documenting the process and not just the final results. Because the final results, for example, in the boats looks very nice, but really most of the learning is in the process of getting to the final result. Most of the evidence for learning is in that process. So this is the second one, and I know some of you are teaching the Oregon Trail. This is one of my favorite. I have a whole class of these. I brought only one today, and that is to build a bridge. I want you to build a bridge that's about 2 feet long, between 2 tables or 2 chairs, however you want this. We have some things here, but the bridge itself had to be built out of pasta. Luckily, it's spaghetti. I thought maybe I'll take mac and cheese, but that takes longer. So, building a bridge out of pasta, we've got glue, we've got other things that you can use to build that bridge, but it's got to be 2 feet long and it's got to be able to carry a cell phone. You got to be able to put a cell phone. Now, choose the lightest cell phone would be my argument. But a cell phone, that's quite heavy. That requires quite a bit of engineering. That's a real challenging task. And I suppose, I propose a lot of trial and error. Don't try to build it perfectly. Try to experiment on the way and make sure that you're getting there. So that's a third task. And the fourth task is curating an art show. I want you to choose I don't give you here specific guidelines. You are a curator of a new museum, but I'm suggesting, especially since we're in Nebraska, to create it based on Nebraska artists, or at least Great Plains artists. There's enough of them. There's a fantastic ones. If you need ideas, I can give you. And then what I want you to do is create a presentation. And I want that presentation actually to use emails. How many of you have seen emails in action? All right, so I'll do a short presentation of emails and then we're off to the races, okay? Are you ready for emails? Are you ready to be amazed? What? Yes. Yes, you can. And always make more. Emails. Emails is a new presentation software, online software, and yes, it is free, which is important, right? It's important for most of us. And no, I don't want to get you started. I want to log in. Where's log in? This is why I love emails, especially for the task I gave you. This is a 3D animation, so your presentation, much like Prezi, will be 3D, but this is the way it works. So, you see how it moves through? It gives you the sense of a 3D environment where you're walking through a gallery and seeing different walls. And you can do this with art, but you can actually do this with a biography. You can see how easily you could do a biography project with this, or anything else for that matter. I think it's lovely. So that's what I'm asking you to do. So again, one of 4 projects. Yes, you can take extra copies if you want. If I run out, I'll make more. Photo history, curate an art show, Oregon Trail, or building a bridge. Groups of up to 4, please.
I didn't know.
Oh, now it makes a little more sense.
I don't know. It just said galleries. So we need a 2-foot. Because it makes it thicker. Right. And then are you not going to work? I don't see it too. I'm going to go into the bathroom.
It's bigger because we didn't have a
We had to do like working backwards.
Yeah.
That was really hard for me. Then like you start with the number, say like somebody pray.
And at our sped seminar on Monday, I talked to, he used to be the associate superintendent for Westside. He is the associate superintendent. Okay. Awesome. Katie Ellery, and she's like, that has been the hardest thing for finding. Yeah, we're posting on history. It's all up to you. Yeah.
So you got the steps and everything.
Got it.
Now walk backwards. So take the phone off and show us. See, document.
Okay.
And now take
And
it.
the last thing we
take
did
it
was
off.
we take that off?
Yeah, and show.
Put the
Just
rubber in?
show, however, because people have to realize how you've done it.
We
And
made
then put it on whatever presentation software you want to use.
Two
There are lots of
bundles.
options there.
And each bundle had 4
talk it out while you're
little bundles inside.
Okay.
And then we had to
And then we
piece each bundle
had to
together
put
so there's
with
a
rubber bands.
Man, we should have thought of this first.
Well, but
it
you'll
doesn't
be
matter.
walking it backwards.
Yep.
It's working.
So that was the one that held them both together.
Okay.
I don't think it's
Here,
gonna
let's
hold.
put my cushion in.
I think it will.
I don't
There
have
you go.
any faith in this.
I think it will.
I don't like it.
I know. I told you I don't think it's gonna stay. It's.
No, it is.
Oh, get a picture. Somebody get a picture.
I can't. I have my phone.
There. My phone's on in my bag. My green. That way we can prove.
Oh, it's gonna go. Is it going?
I think you're. What's gonna stay? Hurry.
There we go.
We did the bridge one, and we decided just to use education, and we just took pictures of each of our steps that we used, and just put them in order. We just started with the spaghetti. We decided, we didn't really know what we wanted to do at first, but then we decided to, thank you. We decided to bundle them into bundles like this second picture. And then we had 4 bundles and we rubber banded all of those together. And then we took, the bottom left picture is 2 of our bundles, and then we took both of them and kind of split them in half. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, we overlapped them. Yeah, we overlapped them so it would be longer. And yeah, so we just used the spaghetti and the rubber bands, and then our finished product was our phone. So I don't know what else to say.
And how did you document? Wait.
Oh, well, we just took pictures of every step that we did. After.
And we worked backwards.
Yeah, so we worked backwards. So after our product, we just did the steps backwards in order to show you what we did.
So one of the lessons is you can work backwards with the problem, right? Go to the final solution and kind of undo it. That's the first thing. The second thing is really if you have groups working, you want to have task assignments, and one of them should be somebody is the documenter who goes around with a camera and takes pictures and takes notes so everybody else can focus on the task at hand, but there is somebody kind of being the meta person that looks at the process. So that's very important. The other thing is, you see how you were grasping for vocabulary there? And we did this and that. This is a great opportunity, going back to the idea of planting some science and engineering vocabulary. That's exactly the point for a teacher in the process to intervene and give some words that then become part of the way they present it. That's a fantastic opportunity for tier 3 vocabulary. Okay, next group.
Okay, so we did something similar to the last group did. We bundled small groups of the spaghetti together using rubber bands. And one of the ways we thought would be the best way to do it was we cut a lot of the rubber bands and then we wrapped it around and then tied the rubber band back together so we didn't have to worry about snapping the spaghetti. And then once we had, how many bundles? Maybe like 8 or 9. We bundled them all together, or we bundled like half and half, and then we bundled the halves together using the rubber bands. So we'd cut them and we'd wrap them around and we'd tie them again. And we did, our bridge was kind of wide, and so what we did to help keep it on the actual chair, because our tape didn't work, we had these metal rings that we hooked on opposite ends of each chair, so like the left side of one and then the right side of the other. And then we attached rubber bands to it, so we put one in and then we cut the others and tied them together, and then hooked it on to the farthest rubber bands of each side of the bridge, so it was being pulled straight. And then we added an extra rubber band around the middle, and then our phone stayed on.
Yeah, very nice. And they did have the longest one, and I love the anchors at the edges. You gotta see this. This is the picture we use. The anchors at the edges.
We did the Oregon Trail, and we used Google Earth to start out by showing the whole trail, and then Google Earth has an option where you can record yourself and do like a virtual tour. So we can play it. If I would have had more time, I would have been a little more rehearsed. Okay, thanks.
The Oregon Trail is a 2,200-mile historic east-to-west wheeled wagon route that connected the Missouri River to valleys in Oregon. Starting in Independence, Missouri, the Oregon Trail spanned through Kansas, Nebraska, and Wyoming, ending in Idaho and Oregon. The Oregon Trail passed through what we now consider historical sites like Fort Kearny, Chimney Rock, Independence Rock, and other sites throughout the Midwest. Throughout the trail, people faced brutal winters,
This was at the top of my mind.
harsh diseases, mountainous regions.
It like stopped recording.
But we kind of talked about, Nicole is with 4th grade right now, and they're talking about Nebraska's history. And we talked about how she could get rid of my video, and she could do the same kind of thing, and they could explore the Oregon Trail, and Google Earth really shows the path that they took, and you could even zoom in like a little bit more too, or zoom out even more and just see how far the people traveled to get across the country. So
Thank you very much. And this is an opportunity to have pictures integrated. Kids have to prepare the trail in advance. They have to find those slots on
could you
Google
add
Earth.
pictures?
Yes.
Could you add pictures
You
to
can
each
go to the pictures that are already there. There are pictures, if you activate, I had you deactivate, but people have posted millions of pictures on Google Earth, and you can go to those sites and you can zoom in as part of the movie on photos.
So our purpose was to explore Lincoln's history and its changes in specific points of interest. And we did downtown Lincoln. We thought that was pretty historical. Thought that would be kind of fun to do. So our questions for students was, how has the city changed? What is it, or what looks different? And in that history pin, we could fade in and fade out, like we were showing earlier. And what types of development has occurred? So, did you want to elaborate on the steps?
Our steps, well, we had to download History Pin. And then we went and looked at different topics, and we chose downtown Lincoln because we figured if we were doing it here, it'd be something that kids would be familiar with, places they've been, places they've seen. We did Google searches of different pictures of downtown, and then we uploaded those onto History Pin. Oh, you can't see them anyway because they're not. Okay, and then we picked O Street, the Capitol, and the Haymarket to show them pictures of, say you couldn't go on a field trip, you could show them pictures of that. And now we're just waiting for them to be okay.
Yep, so on History Pin, it takes a while for them to okay the pictures, and then once they're okay, then they'll pop up on the website, and you can look at what we uploaded. So.
Okay, thank you.
We made a bridge. This is our final piece. We started out by kind of brainstorming a little bit. We talked about we're putting them in bundles with rubber bands. Our first bridge was kind of just like the first group was like just a bunch of spaghetti like bundled together, and it held one phone, and it kind of sunk down a little bit. So we tried a different bridge. As you can see, number 1, those are supplies. Number 2 here, we bundled up groups of spaghetti with rubber bands, and then in the middle we kind of clipped that rubber band and tied it instead of trying to rubber band it. So we had to change our materials a little bit. And number 3, we placed just flat spaghetti on top of the 2, what would you call that, sticks of spaghetti that we have to make it more, our edges to make it more sturdy. And then number 4, we experienced with 1 phone, and then we found out we could hold 2 phones. So that is our bridge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We tried the eMaze app to make an art show. So a way that we thought would be, we had some technology troubles, but a way that we thought we could incorporate this was to display kids' artwork that they do. So we had, like I said, we had a lot of technology troubles. Yeah, it doesn't work for iPad. It really doesn't work for iPad or iPhones. We found that out. But it seemed to work on our computer a lot better. It was a little difficult to navigate around. We couldn't quite figure out how to edit and add in slides. It just kind of kept bringing us back to the beginning. So it took a little bit to figure that out, but I think we all thought it would be a really creative way to display, and I think kids and parents would love it.
That was like the one that guided, but then we just were playing with another.
Another template?
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of different templates. Yeah, they're catered to which subject you were using it for.
Yeah, like this one I think was more kind of a science-y theme to it. Yeah. I mean, you can incorporate graphs to it. Like I think this one has graphs. Just all kinds of visuals to display. Just basically any information you want to give out and share with kids and parents. I thought it was pretty cool. I really liked this one. Personally, if I was a kid in school watching this, I would be engaged by it. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah?
That would be cool with this app. Tara just made a comment about if there was that one-to-one with the iPads during conferences, they can set their iPad up and put all their work on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of opportunities, lots of different tools that can enhance what we do, everybody. Fantastic, thank you very much. You're switching to wherever you're switching, and thank you for staying patient.